How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I don't know. We talked a while ago, but
Yeah,
but I'm like,
we did.
I have Inyeon with my Celine
Yeah.
again, so it's good.
Yes, of course. I mean, I'm sure we talked about us having to have Inyeon again.
Oh,
So
totally, totally. We did mention that, and I was like, okay, it's gonna
Mhm.
happen.
It's gonna happen.
I gotta ask, so I'm with the Asian AV Club, and basically we like to
Hmm.
do profiles, and so of course we're gonna talk about the film, but I'd love to kind of like go a little bit larger in terms of the storyline, and in terms,
Yeah,
and just wanted to ask you, the last time we talked, you were doing press for Past Lives,
yeah,
and you were having this like kind of crazy, this kind of like trajectory of just like people didn't know you and all of a sudden everybody knew you and it became this
yeah.
kind and I'm just curious like what that little kind of journey was like personally and also and also creatively because I heard somewhere that during this period of time you were also in your head you're like you know what I should write I should write the materials or whatever that version was it was like you had
Yeah.
to like kind of create because everything else was kind of pushing you towards just promoting and like you were not using that muscle that maybe can you talk a little bit about that kind of
Well, I think
journey like
totally. I think that's really true, but I think that's true about anything, any kind of attention. I feel like it's a wonderful thing because what that means is it's gonna help you make your next one, right? Like I feel like everything that I was able to have because of past lives were then only helped me make my next movie. And I know that my current movie, that movie is gonna also help me make my next one too. So it's a kind of you're always just trying to keep going with anything. I think that time is of course like it is pretty surprising to be like m more famous than you were before, right? Because in part of it is that it's like you get to be a very it's interesting because I sometimes talk about it as if you're more visible, but you're not necessarily better seen, you know, because not everybody's gonna get you also,
right
right? And of course it's amazing when like so many people do get you, and I feel like I'm just grateful for them. But just because it's all going well doesn't mean that you're seen by everyone, right? You're very visible, which is amazing because in part of the visibility is that it is gonna help you start your career and then build your career. Although I guess I had a career as a playwright for like 10 years
you did
before.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's not such a beginning, but it is a beginning for me as a filmmaker. Yeah.
Did it make you kind of question your creativity in the sense that like did you make yourself almost oh, I really got to lock myself down and like kind of focus then because there's so many more
Mm.
distractions. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
people want things from you now, and then so therefore, like, did that affect the way you maybe created? If that
Well, no, actually, no, Materialists I wrote before Past Lives went to Sundance and began its journey. So I didn't know my promotion hasn't started and my movie wasn't no one had seen Past Lives
right,
when I wrote Materialist. So that was good because then that allowed me to just like write the thing I wanted to write and make the thing that I wanted to make without thinking about, well, how did my last one go or something like that, right?
right,
So I just wrote it. I wrote it before Past Lives was seen by anybody. Right. So so it wasn't hard to focus on that level. I'm sure, well, if I was trying to write something during promotion, maybe it would have been a little bit harder. But I do think that that's a pretty tough time because your whole life is just promoting this one movie, right?
right.
So it's really hard to um, give birth to another movie,
That
right?
that
Which is the writing.
I gotta ask that because obviously, if you've written Materialist and you had a picture of
Hmm.
your cast in your head, and then you got
Hmm.
access to this cast in your head
Yeah.
that was offered to you, was that an interesting? Also, because
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because I mean, these are three huge stars,
Hmm.
and so I'm just curious, like the version that you had versus the one that you ended up making, was that an interesting kind of also
I mean,
experience for you
I
too?
don't really write with actors in mind,
Yeah,
but also I just, like I don't think I know enough to really understand I didn't really know enough to really understand like whether I could or could not get big movie stars. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's when you're just writing, you're not really thinking about cast, and then when
right.
they ask you who you think is right for it, it becomes really a conversation about like, well, who do I think is right for it? As opposed to being like, well, they're too big or they're too small or whatever. It's very like, and I think that it was not that different from the way that I cast past lives, where it was very much like meeting people and then just trying to see if I see the soulmate for my characters in that actor. Yeah.
What I appreciate is I don't know your three leads personally, but what I've
Yeah.
always kind of understood over my just being a nerd about films and
Yeah.
stuff is that they feel like people who have open hearts to like
Yeah.
characters and stuff. And I'm just curious, like, what is that like to direct people who are just they are so open to the conversation that you wanted to have about the characters, and also just the kind of being able to project what you needed from them in the best possible way, because their performances were wonderful, but it just was one of those things where it just made me appreciate their openness even more by watching your
Yeah.
film about them. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, like I feel like it's really just what I demand, right? All you can do is you have to demand that they're as open as possible. And then like I feel like, and even if they resist, because I'm asking for a lot of openness, there's something really interesting that comes out of the resistance, right? And eventually, because of the story that it is, they're going to have to be. They're going to have to be open to it because I'm asking them to be very, very, very vulnerable in it. So much of it is about a demand and asking, right? And then and some of it is about pushing too. So it's a kind of like you're kind of like always like asking, like I know you're it's really about trying to get the vulnerability because it's the only way that it's going to um mean something to the audience too. Like, and this also I know how they want to be seen. They want to be seen as the human beings that they are
Right.
and not merchandise, right? Yeah.
The most vulnerable character on your film is the one that's played by Zoe Winters.
Yeah.
I love her performance so
It's so
much.
good.
It's
It's
so
so
good.
good.
Can you talk about working with her? And
Yeah.
I just want you to just give some flowers to this wonderful actress who
Yeah,
like
she's
any,
so amazing.
yeah.
I mean, she just sent in an audition tape and I cast her off of that. I didn't even need to call her back. I was just like I saw it and she already had the character Sophie in that tape. And I was just obsessed with her. I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I think I saw her performance and then I was like, let's make this together. And then of course she and we had a lot of conversations about the character of Sophie, what she has to go through, and then of course she's showing up on set, just killing it, you know?
It's a
She's just
brilliant.
amazing actress, a theater actress.
But
Yeah.
in terms of like, how what she represents in this film of just like women trying
Ooh.
to date in a city like New York, and then actually
Oh yeah.
what happens to her, and I don't want to, give spoilers, but it's just
Yeah.
is is very real, and it kind of because up until a certain point, it's like the film still has a certain sense of lightness to it, but then what happens to her
Yeah.
is extremely, it just really puts
Of
us back into the
course.
to the real world. And so was it very important for you to also tell that kind of story where there is this kind of element of
Oh
realness.
yeah.
Dating is not as, happy or whatever as you kind of people kind of want to see it on a screen even.
Well, I feel like it's so built into the whole thing, right? Because I'm like, well, I don't think that the way that in the very first scene, the way that the man that Sophie goes on a date with on the phone, the way that he speaks about her, is very kind
Yeah,
or humane, right? It's already dehumanized. He's like, she's 40 and fat, right? And you're like, well, but what about the person that she is? She's a nice person,
right,
right? What did you like her? Did you like her as a person, or did you just go like, she's 40 and fat? I don't think she's a human being. Right? Like, so the thing is like the dehumanization is built from the first scene, the first few pieces of dialogue that is spoken about Sophie. So it's not, so to me, it's like, well, if you think that all of those things were lighter fare, I think that really speaks to not you specifically, but like, if we think that so much of that is actually jokes or it's like they're lighter fare, and then to be like, well, that's the only thing that's pretty dark about it. I'm like, no,
yeah,
it was dark from the beginning, right?
yeah,
The way that they talk about each other is about this woman is it's always been dark, right? Like she does it's the way that she talks to her friend on the fire escape, right? Her colleague at fire escape about the way she sees this woman. It's also very dark, right? But I think that we're used to dehumanizing each other so much that I think that it's harder to register that as inhuman in a
right.
way that when something that is violent happens to her, then we're suddenly like, oh, that's dehumanizing. And you're like, yeah, but the scene one, it's all been built, right? The
Yeah.
whole time that she's being thoroughly dehumanized. And she's going to humanize herself by saying, I'm not merchandise, I'm a person, right? Which is a thing that I think that all of us as modern people, uh, we just have to be reminded of, right? Because we forget it all the time. It's so easy to treat ourselves like we're objects, we're merchandise, right? Yeah.
Was that something that you kind of learned when you were working as a professional matchmaker?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about like kind of um the kind of breakdown between like somebody telling you all these things, numbers,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff, and you trying to be professional about it and just being like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Like, is it
Oh
must it must
yeah, it
was
was hard. I mean, it's so funny because I'm like, they would just fully be say have racist things that they want to say to me, right? They'll be like, I don't want to date an Asian, and I'm like, like like okay,
Yeah,
like
cool, cool,
I'm sitting
cool.
right here, you know. But something that I always felt was like I was like, well, but the truth is, at the end of the day, like Asians don't want to date you if that's what you're gonna say to a matchmaker,
Right.
right? So that's how I could get over it. That's how I could be like, okay, well, I don't intend to set you up with an Asian person anyway, if so, right? Because I'm kind of like, well, I don't want to subject them to you, a racist. So it's really funny. I think I just learned how direct people actually are about what they want, right? And it's really interesting because I feel like it's very I think about this so much. I think that uh uh the wealth is the uh like because it's a drug of our time. I think that it is also the thing that we find to be the least polite to talk about,
Yeah.
right? Even more than sex. I feel like people are becoming very open to talking about sex in a way that they're really still very uncomfortable. Everybody's very uncomfortable talking about money. Or when they do, it is always in the uh, it's always in a very nasty way. Like I find it's in a way where it's quite violent to each other, you know? Like it's like people being brutal to it's being classist is something that everybody seems so many people seem uh more comfortable with than they were even 10 years ago. I've been just noticing this, and I think that's really brutal. I think it just means that the wealthy people's propaganda is really working, right? Because the wealthy people are saying like the being poor is the fault of the being poor is the fault of the poor.
Right.
And I think that America is starting to really believe it. It's like, well, why didn't you work hard? And you're like, well, I wish that working hard meant that you could afford the life like my character Harry. But we know it's not possible, right? No
Right.
matter how the hardest working people in America are not making a fraction of what Harry's apartment costs a year, right? So it's not a fair system. So
It
why are we being so classist? Go ahead, sorry.
I no,
Yeah.
I was gonna bring that up because literally my next two questions are about this, about the fact that like, you wrote this back in a certain time, and of course you
Mhm.
lived in New York, and so you could see this kind of thing happening. But in this current day and age, it feels
Yeah.
like it's so completely amplified,
Oh
and that
yeah.
even when I'm walking down the streets, I'm looking at all these like low key like Patrick Bateman, American Psycho type boys, and I'm just like, what
Yes.
the F people? Like it
Yeah.
is just and it feels really uncomfortable for me. And then but at
Yeah.
the same time, as a single person in New York, it's like I play, there's a certain level of this game that's kind of existing, whether you want to play it or not. It's a part of the currency of like who you are as
Yeah.
and so
It's a
you've really
market.
it's a market. You've tapped into
Yeah.
something that feels so 2025 that like,
Yeah.
so how does that feel to kind of like, obviously these are the things that existed for many years, but then now you're looking around and you're like, holy shit, this is it's like your profit almost, like it's
Oh, it's
kind
just
of
getting worse,
it's
right?
getting
Everything's
worse.
getting worse. And we think about like environmentalism and the environmentalist movements, right? It's like, well, they the scientists were talking about it 20 years ago, and now it's just worse, right? So I do think that it's like, well, it is still worth talking about over and over again because at this rate, it's just going to keep getting worse, right?
Right.
So I think the part of what I wanted to make in the movie is to really just an opportunity for us to even talk about it. It's part of the reason why everybody's so frank about money in the movie. Because you're like, why are we pretending like this is the height when it comes to men is one of the most intense like topics. right? It's like, and of course, like, like the men's rights Reddits are all about them, right? Like
Right.
they're talking about it fine. But the thing is, it's like I feel like it is worth talking about even in polite society, in cinema. Because you're like, well, it is actually fully affecting the way that we dehumanize men too, right? And then especially the dating market, it's like, of course, yes, I think of course, as you can see in the storyline of Sophie, or even what Lucy's going through, of course, is going to still affect women disproportionately. Of course,
Right.
it's a very market the market is very tough on women, but it does not spare men, right? It doesn't. And in fact, men are the ones who have to also be a part of the way that we change the way we see each other in the dating market, right? It can't just happen in, you know what I mean? It just can't happen in little corners. It has to be systematic change, just like um saving planet Earth is has to be a systematic change.
Right.
Like we can like it's like yeah, you can sort of you can live in the dating market and then see what's wrong with it and then try to operate morally and ethically and humanely all you want, just like how we can use a recycled straw, right?
Right.
Like straw that is you can recycle. Like you can do those things, of course, but I feel like at the end of the day, it has to come in systematic change. And for that to happen, you need collective action, right?
Right.
And collective action is something where it's like, well, how can you exclude men from that?
Right.
Right? So in a way, I'm like the conversation about height, for example, is something that I just knew that well, we want to talk about because when I talk to people behind people in behind closed doors, height is right? Like it's like such a big topic, but no one talks about why like casually in romantic comedies everybody's like over 6 feet tall,
Yeah.
right? It's like
uh, I'm sure you've had many conversations with people who've seen your films, maybe
yeah.
with women, but I'm just curious, like, what are the conversations like when a man comes to you? And I'm gonna like even make it a smaller group as a heterosexual man. I'm just curious, like, what
Yeah,
is that?
straight men.
Yeah, straight men. Like, what is that like when they've seen your movies and they want to talk to you about
Mm.
their reactions to something like this film or the previous one? I'm just curious, like.
Hmm. I think sometimes it's like either if it's a sad thing, it's like expression of hopelessness
Hmm.
where they're like it just makes it clear, the movie makes it clear it just like everything that I already feel and that I feel really hopeless in it. Or it's more like, well, the positive side of it is like, well, I just feel I feel understood or I feel uh like I understand it and I really connect with John or like I connect with Harry and I really connect with the way that they feel like they're not enough, right? And that they're not enough to get to deserve to date or deserve to love. And they don't feel like they do enough. Sometimes if their partner, they express they don't feel like they want to do more for their partners and sometimes they can't afford to, and that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like I feel like so either I feel like you really relate or you go um I just I think this just says that like I'm just gonna die alone, right? It's kind of like so which I think is like in some ways relating too.
Yeah.
So I do think it's like a bit of like I don't know, I feel like it's just a very honest thing, right, with them. Yeah,
The you make a
interesting.
choice. I don't know if you
Oh,
make the
but by
choice.
the way, I'm sure people the ones who like don't want to talk to me. I'm sure they have their own
Oh
thoughts.
yeah,
I'm sure they're like really mad or something,
they're
but
like
I don't know.
stomping out of
Yeah.
screenings and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So I can't speak
It's not
I
me.
can't speak for them. I can't speak for them, but I can speak for the wonderful men who come and talk to me. Yeah.
There's at least on my end, I walked away saying that you kind of make a choice in the sense that like even though
Yeah.
there is this kind of world where math is kind of existent,
Yeah.
you choose the flower, like the it's and so I'm just curious, do you
Yeah.
believe that sometimes the flower is
Yeah.
enough? Is that kind of, does that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, what do you mean? It fits from the person who love you.
yeah,
So what are you asking for, right? I just think about this. I'm like sometimes I feel like sometimes a response to my movie is like I ask me to like are you asking me to lower my standards? And I'm always like, well, I wouldn't ask you to lower your standards on anything that you're not entitled to.
right,
And the only thing that you're entitled to from the person who love you is that they love you. You're not entitled to that income. You're not entitled to the height. You're not entitled to anything, right? You know, if because what are you asking from the person who love you, right? And it's so funny because people seem very more comfortable lowering their standards um for love. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like they feel more comfortable being like, oh, they don't love me as much and like, but that's okay. I still want to hold on. Like they seem it's like it seems like that's an easier thing than to say like, you know, to lower your standards for like how that person's gonna look on your Instagram,
Right.
right? Which is what really what that's about. It's about um it's again, it's about value. That's what the movie's so much about, you know? So I think it's that. I think it's just a matter of like, well, how do we how do we um like how can we accept? Like I think about it all the time, just like, well, we don't seem to ask the question the price of a Birkin bag,
Right.
right? But we do really seem to question the value of love. Everybody seems like, is it even worth it? And I'm like, well, it seems like you feel very comfortable saying that the Birkin bag's worth it. You know, like how is it that this ancient thing, this thing that's been keeping, making humanity happy and like keeping us healthy and good, and that's been sustaining us as animals, right? That's this thing that's an ancient mystery and an ancient feeling, this very deep thing, this very holy thing. How can you ask the question, if is it worth it? You know?
I got two more questions. What one is, you know, I, I'm curious because, obviously you've worked in the realm of writing stories that has come about your heritage, and then also now you've written a film that has a cast that is looks different. And I'm just curious, like, is there pressure from maybe the general kind of like AAPI kind of world to be like,
Mm.
no, you should do more stories about us for us, that kind of thing? Or like how do you
Hmm.
how do you like decipher? Because again, there are many
Mm.
people that look like us in the world,
Yeah,
that are making these
of
things, right? And
course.
but I also believe that if you make things that just so happen to be, feel like
Hmm.
more important than if it's just a story that is just mainly about. And I'm just curious if you believe in that, or like how does that kind of
Hmm.
play in kind of conversations about like what next and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's really a conversation about like what the artist wants to do with
Right.
anything. Because I feel like it really has to do with like what is the story that I am coming to, and how am I coming to it in good faith, right? I do think that it's like but I totally understand it. It's like it's you're always like looking for stories and great stories that reflect um, our own experience, right? That's
Right.
happening on every level. Like people want that from like, people want that from like Marvel movies. So why wouldn't they want that from, you know what I mean? Want that on so many other places, right? So I do think it's that, but I think that it has to still be something that comes from a place of uh, not of uh, what is it, like sense of duty, but it has to come from a place of um, like truthful and
Right.
like very honest approach to one's life and one's work, right? So it's a kind of a thing where I feel like it's so much more about like, yeah, I mean, like, do I think Materialist is less personal to me? No, I think it's very personal,
Yeah.
right? Because of the way that it really reflects some of the experiences I've had too, right? It's very different than past lives, and that the experience is not connected to my like identity, right? My quote unquote identity. Although like I'm like I always think about that in terms of like, yeah, but also like it is still a unique person. Like
Yeah.
Nora is still a unique person, even from me, but also just as a person, like her parents are artists. I don't think that's like gonna represent uh everybody.
Right.
You know? So I think it's like, yeah, I think that's really how I feel about it. I feel like I think I'm always just trying to look for a story that I feel connected to, you know.
This is my last question in the sense
Yeah.
that, like, I know I read somewhere that you are working on a series or potentially working on a series next,
Yeah.
and I'm just curious, like, because I know you did work on the Wheel of Time, and I'm just curious,
Hmm.
like, what is the beauty of like having a story and characters that are then drawn out for a longer
Oh
period of time?
yeah.
Can you talk about like, like jumping
I love
back?
it.
Yeah.
TV, yeah. I love it. I feel like TV just allows for um things to be withheld for a long time. You know what I mean? Like it's like, well, if Materialist was a TV show, I would have a whole episode about John and Lucy's relationship as people in their 20s,
Right.
right?
Right.
We get to do that, but instead in the movie you get to have it like a 5 minutes, like a 2 minute scene of them trying to park, right? To stand in for that. So it's kind of like you just get to have more fun longer with the characters that you love. You know, that's what I
That's
really about it.
I,
Anyway, but I'm making that show because I'm a gamer.
that's
All
so
right.
cool. I'm so
Yeah.
excited, and I
Can't
look
wait.
forward. I can't wait to talk to you about that.
I can't wait to, let's talk about that next, okay?
Thank you
All right.
so much. Thank
Thank you so
you. So
much.
lovely talking to you.
So nice to talk to you. Thank you, Stevie.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Bye bye.